Okay, I'm ready to save people's lives. I am, here we go. I right now possess in my hand all you need, bloop, 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 to save life from a gunshot wound. Who's heard that carrying this is good to plug a bullet hole? How stupid is that? This could be okay for maybe epistaxis, good old-fashioned nosebleed. What do you think? Let's talk for a little bit about dogmas. Dogmas in training, but most specifically in this medical stuff. So thankfully to guys like D-Day Response Group, Green Beret medics that have traveled the globe testing theories and skills, we now have things like the CAT tourniquet that have become popularized. It's still not mainstream, but 15 years ago, nobody saw this kind of stuff. Now it's mainstream because of what war fighters like the dudes at D-Day have brought home from their hard-earned knowledge. A lot of guys carrying these, which is cool, but it ain't the end-all be-all. By the way, if you buy one of these, buy it from somebody reputable like D-Day, because they are copied by many. Also, if you're going to carry it, it should be out of the cellophane. And pro tip, the way that North American Rescues packages these is the mode that they should be carried in, which I'll show you one outside of the package. Dogmas. Dogmas are things that we hold to be true regardless of there possibly being new information or better information. That old tampon thing, I've been told so many times, I see people with them. Unless it's for you, for menstruation or your daughter or wife, I wouldn't have it. Oh, come on, man. I heard about a guy. No. Let's think about this. Let's switch gears. Gear. If I showed up on the range to teach or train with you, and I had this beautiful Radian weapon, it's got all this top-notch stuff on it, right? I got one of these SB braces. It's got some Magpul parts on it. It's got an aim point on it. It's got a Surefire light on it. It's got a Viking Tactics sling. It's all top-notch. There's nothing on here that you could say is junk, right? Fast forward, I show up with this. If I showed up with this to teach a carbine course, well, that's a carbine. This is, by definition, a short rifle. A short, handy rifle right here. And you know what? I could probably outshoot most mother effers with this gun, and I'd enjoy doing it. But that ain't the point either. You'd laugh. You'd laugh me right off the range, right? That's not what you need. You need the carbine. You need a fancy AR. Where I'm going with this is we get fixated on the gear. We get fixated on the tool. If I could get the job done with that, what's the problem? Right? The answer is no problem, yet we fixate on it. Rather than buy more guns, more training, more ammo, do you know how to use the ones you have? That's the broad point. But in the context of medical, I'd rather you have really good stuff and know how to use it than none at all. I'd rather you have very limited stuff and know how to use it than none at all. Don't get fixated on the gear. Get fixated on what its purpose is for and whether or not you know how to use it. A couple analogies tied in there. I hope you understand where I'm going with it. Blowout kit. A lot of guys come to a class, carry one of these with you. What's a blowout kit? Well, a blowout kit is intended to stop blowouts, right? A hole into your chest where your lungs are no longer able to work properly, where you lose that pressure differential. This is not a teaching video. We're just talking about some of the stuff that we should be thinking about. A major arterial bleed, right? One of these arteries is cut and you're bleeding out. So you need the stuff to fix that. This is a kit from D-Day. We've got another tourniquet. Again, this just came off the shelf. If you're carrying one of these, it should be unpackaged. I've got trauma shears in here. I've got chest seal, right? So this is used to plug up those holes. Why is there two? A lot of guys say, well, in case you mess one up. No, there's two, because if there's a hole here, there's probably a hole on the backside. We've got a trauma dressing from North America Rescue. This trauma dressing is basically a big gauze pad with what's basically an ace bandage. So you can slap it down onto the wound and create pressure to help squelch the bleeding. Come back to that in a minute. We got Kerlex in here. Basically, it's a loose roll of gauze. You can use that to wipe stuff away, maybe clean off a chest to get the chest seal on there. You can make a sling out of this. You could make a light dressing out of it. And then we've got Celox Rapid. This is the best hemostatic agent in the world. This is what you could plug a bullet hole with. an area like here, right, where you can't get a tourniquet, an area down by the crotch, an area here, these junctional areas that you can't get a tourniquet, that's what this stuff's for. You stuff that wound full, and there's a clotting agent in here. This is the best stuff on the market, and that's what's in this kit. So this is a blowout kit. This is not the kit when Timmy's got a tummy ache that you pull out. There's no Band-Aids in here. There's no Pepto-Bismol kind of stuff. Come back to this real quick before I put it away. A lot of people overlook this. Who cares? I live in Arizona. It's summertime. It's 90 degrees. I don't need a foil blanket. Wrong. If somebody's bleeding enough that you need to tourniquet them, if they're having some type of issue like that, they're probably going into shock. Shock means that you're losing the ability to transfer oxygen through your body from blood loss or another reason. Your temperature is going to drop if you're losing massive amounts of blood. Even if it's 100 degrees, you can go into hypothermia. Wrap them up. These are cheap, 90 cents, right? You can toss those in many a kit. So you see people with those in the movies on the side of the road. That's what it's for. This kit that I carry is more of, this is basically everything that's in there, plus some minor medicines, things like the Advil, Band-Aid, stuff like that. I go to the beach with this. If I'm out for a day hike, it rides around in my truck. That's what this is. But this is what I really wanted to share with you guys. This is a kit that I had D-Day make me. They sell these. They got a smaller one and they got a bigger one and they got a really big one. So like if you have a private ranch or resort, you have a yacht, something like that, they specialize in actually making these and training the recipient of them on how to use them. So this is a mobile one that I keep with me, and there's a few more things I'll show you that travels with it. But they can also, depending on your level of training, can specialize the contents of it, right? So let's see what's in here. Well, out of the gate, you notice it's super well organized. I've got 5 bags and they're all marked. I got Airway, bleeding, burns, bandages, and splinting. And we'll come back to those. Up top, I've got a few things sorted out. I've got a couple different types of large gauze dressings, smaller gauze dressings, scalpel. I've got some things here to patch or cover the eye. I've got another one of those foil dressings, tweezers, gloves, because we got to protect ourselves, right? Body substance isolation is what that's called. I've got different types of bandages in here, like regular old adhesive bandages, what we call Band-Aids, right? And then, of course, I don't want to forget these. I've got some D-Day Response Group stickers. Heck yeah. Move down, though, to the meat of the matter. This is a basic like home medicine cabinet kind of stuff. Motrin, Dramamine, Tylenol, ammonia packets, triple antibiotic ointment, stuff like that in here. Basic stuff like that. Thermometers in there. And because you may need to treat somebody after you've treated them with what's in here. I think we've got some aspirin and things like that in here. Bandages. This is cut, scrapes, abrasions, things of that nature that are not major bleeding, but bleeding nonetheless. Trauma dressings in here, a couple different types, more of that Kerlex, some tape, and several different kinds of gauze. So you see you got some bleeding going on. It's not crazy bleeding that you need to put a tourniquet on or some really tight dressing. That's what you grab here. Burns, barbecuing, can get a crazy burn from something like that, let alone something like a car crash or house fire. How many car crashes have you seen in your life? I've seen a lot of them. I have a friend, law enforcement officer locally, pulled a woman from a burning wreck, and it was not a pretty sight. So there's saline in here to rinse the wound. More Kerlex as a dressing. We've got some sports bandages, and then Burn Tech, first aid burn hydrogel dressing, which you would use to cover and protect and help to keep germs out of the burn until you can get to a higher advanced level of care. So very good stuff to have, man. Very good stuff to have. And it's all handy. Bleeding. So this is basically the contents of what was in our blowout kit. And this, because this kit does travel around with me, you'll notice this guy is unwrapped. I do if I'm not using them, I always leave the instructions with the TQ if it's in a bag like this, because what if it's not me getting it? What if somebody's getting it for me? What if I'm unconscious? They've got the instructions. But I was telling you, this is how this should be wrapped. A lot of guys I see will take the time tab and they wrap it over the clamp. Don't do that. Why? Because under duress, bloody hands, gloves, etc., you might not be able to get that off. And just in training, I've watched people fight with it. That's how NAR sends it, because this is how this should be folded up. So anyway, same contents as what's in that other one. Curlex, pressure bandage, and Celox Rapid, the stuff that you can use to plug a hole up and has the hemostatic agent. Google that if you'd like to read more. Good stuff. So then we come down to Airway. This is an important one. So if somebody's not breathing right, they've got a penetrating chest wound. You saw them get shot. You show up, their lips are blue, they don't seem to be breathing well, they're clutching their chest, right? I've got a couple things in here. I'll come back to this tubing, but I've got more of those chest seals that we saw earlier. Again, 2 of them. Couple nifty things in here. We've got a nice headlamp, nice Pelican headlamp they put in here, because one, it could be nighttime, but also you may have to see into somebody's throat. What if they got an airway obstruction that you can't see? That'll help you see. Got a pulse oximetry meter here, pulse ox meter. This is super handy. What's this thing do? Well, it measures your SpO2. It measures the amount of oxygen that your blood's carrying around, which is very important. And this handy little meter is going to tell you what that is, so you know if they're getting good, viable respirations or not. More to that than just that simple of an explanation, but a very handy thing to have, and it only takes a few seconds to read. A mouth dam. If you've taken a CPR class, you may have seen a larger pocket mask for space. They've got this in there. If you're giving somebody mouth to mouth, even if it's your loved one, and you don't mind the germs, there's a probability of them vomiting because you could be blowing air into their tummy. All of that comes into your mouth. Or they could be somebody with a disease. This is a very important thing to have. We've got a couple MPAs in here, nasal pharyngeal airways. These couple sizes. These are what you see go into a nose, and they provide an airway through the sinus passages. You can feed an oxygen tube into that, but it helps secure an airway, and this is all in this kit. Now, don't go out and just buy this if you don't know how to use it, but this is stuff that I know how to use, so I have it with me, right? Why do I have the tubing? Well, because I personally carry a small O2 bottle. Inside of here is a bottle regulator all ready to go, as well as a non-rebreather mask. I think, and I'm going to give it to you in a minute. We'll come back to that. I'm going to lay this down for safety, but that's what this tubing's for. So we're pretty well set up here to deal with a lot of stuff. And again, you have to know how to use this stuff. Otherwise, it's not going to do you anything, right? It's like a really fancy optic and you don't know how to use it. It's like a really fancy piece of electronics that is beyond your expertise. You know, how many of us go out and buy like a really nice camera and then we're like, shit, I don't know how to use any of this. Here's something that I think is a great addition to a family's purchases. Defibrillator. A defibrillator, you see these in public. A lot of law enforcement agencies demand that they're in cars now. Public buildings have them, schools. This is an amazing device that can be the difference between life and death for a loved one if you have this with you. And again, this isn't an instructional class. I want to talk to you about some of the stuff that we should be having. And I'm going to close it out with this. Even if you go spend the money and you buy this stuff, if you don't know how to use it, it's for naught. Just like the weapons. If you don't know how to deploy this to protect yourself, your loved ones, your partners, your community, doesn't mean anything what you own. As well as having the mindset to deploy this stuff. If you have this and you've gone through the training and you know how to use it, but you're not willing and ready and able to act, that doesn't matter either. So you have to couple the product with the know-how, with the heart that will direct you to action, which means you need to predetermine what you will do, what you won't do. getting involved in violence or even in providing aid as a good Samaritan to somebody or to your family, if you don't know what you're doing, you can cause more harm. You could get in the way. I think sometimes we like to, in this community, we want to be the helper. We want to step in. We want to step it up. You have to be able to operate inside the confines of what's legal and what's right. But think about this, and I talk about goals with you constantly. If your true goal is to live a long, full life, if your true goal is to help you and yours survive to old age, then you had better know and understand these things, because the gun is something that you will, out of probability, need so little, if ever, right? But almost everybody we know knows somebody that's provided CPR, done the Heimlich maneuver to somebody in a restaurant. I have, and I'm glad I knew how. How many of you have seen a violent car crash? Seen somebody swimming, right? Seen somebody riding a bicycle. People are injured every single day. Talk to one of your local firefighter paramedics and say, hey, what are the calls you go on? You seeing a lot of gunshot wounds? And if you live in a certain area, they might see a few. But even in a city as dangerous as Chicago, it's not every day, right? You need to decide to what level you will take your commitment to live a long, full life, and then apply action to the areas that are going to help support that and bolster that outcome. As far as I'm concerned, having a good medical action plan, knowing how to use the gear that's with you, keeping up to date on the training the loved ones that are around you, being ready, willing, and able to act, keeping your body physically fit is all part of the plan. If you're interested in these kits, check out D-Day Response Group. I'll definitely tag them on the video here. These are our good friends. These are the guys that have provided all the training for us at the S12 events for the TCCC training. They're the best guys I know in the business, besides just what they do as former Green Berets. They're great human beings that love America, that love their families, and they provide awesome products. So if you're into this stuff, check them out. If you're into the S12 event, visit CarryTrainer.com and you can look that up. And yeah, if you're looking for things like CPR, American Heart Association, the Red Cross, both provide CPR classes. Go to your local community college and look up some classes like the EMR, First Responder course. There is so much available stuff out there, and if you spend all your time thinking about how to shoot faster, draw quicker, I guarantee you are missing part of a puzzle that is way too important. This is Mickey with CarryTrainer.com. Be well. Don't be a dickhead. And quit playing with your sister's tampons, you creeps.